Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, people of Iran. We're connected with us for our 16th that time and episode of our podcast on Tuesdays against executions. Let me to make a correction because in our last week I said we were at 16 episode, but actually it was the 15. Because we had a short episode with no guest, resuming the messages that our previous guest until the 14 episode sent to you, and so we maybe didn't include into the numbers of episode that. So today it's the 16th episode. I'm proud that we start that way of support to people of Iran and giving them voices over the jail, and hopefully to be useful and give them a kind of light, additional light. So this is also the occasion to run over also their courage and their value of continuing to fight against a terrible regime and the lack of any kind of guarantees and protection of human rights, and also support of to their family then that are continuing protesting outside the prisons. And I recall to our public that the movement Tuesdays Against the Executions is carried out now from every corner of the country and supported by 52 prisons around the country. So before to introduce our guest today, connected from Germany, right, from Nuremberg, I would like to share with you very sad news about the situation in Iran. Last Saturday, 25th October, one more woman has been executed, brutally executed, in the silence of the international press. She were accused of pre-intentional murder, but I would like to recall here that many women we accused of such kind of crime are in the majority of cases victims of domestic violence, and in many cases they react in self-defense against a brutal situation inside home. And this is allow me to send a message of support to their family, because the one additional problem is the conception of women in Iran, like in other countries, but especially in Iran. So they live in a jail sometimes, in many cases, inside home, and then they move in a jail because they try to search for freedom inside home. So my solidarity to the family of this new additional victim of last Saturday. Today is my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Gurgen Petrossian. As I said, from Germany. He is based in Nuremberg, where he's a senior research fellow at the Nuremberg Principles Academy. And you see that our session today will be centered especially on international criminal law, because our guest is a specialist in international criminal law. He is also a prominent expert and academic with a few charges, not only in Germany but also in Armenia. And in Yerevan especially. So, Dr. Petrossian, thank you very much for accepting our invitation today and for your support. The floor is yours, and but if I may, I would like to start today asking you a question about the current possible impact of Nuremberg principles on the situation of Iran.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure, but at the same time, it is of course very sad to hear that we have additional victims who suffer because of the capital punishment. Well, as you correctly mentioned, I do come really from a historical city, Nuremberg, and that sets the groundbreak work for the international criminal justice. One of the core principles of Nuremberg judgment, or the outcome of the Nuremberg judgment, is of course that anyone who commits international crime shall be found liable for that. And if we open this principle, that means that independent to the fact where exactly the international crime has been committed, when exactly this international crime has been committed, the person's fate is already decided. So it means that it's only the matter of time when the person is going to be arrested and found liable for commission of international crime. So one of the biggest examples in the Iranian case is the case of Nouri, who was arrested in Sweden and found liable for the commission of atrocities in 1980s in the prison facilities of Iran. And this is actually a sign to all those international perpetrators that are torturing the victims, that are attacking the victim, attacking civilians and political opponents, so said, or based on also their gender identity, because of their religious identity, because of their different other identities and group representation. So this is actually a sign to all of them, including also the prosecutors, judges, even the defense counsels who are part of that regime. So this is as mentioned, this is an example that should apply to all international perpetrators. I think this Sweden gave that best practice so far.
Thank you very much for very practice-focused example. But the point is one additional point we have. So. Do you think that there is any, just to explain to our public, any possibility to have a de facto open investigation over Iran ex officio, better said, by the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court against Iran?
Well, unfortunately, the current Iranian legal system on international level is a little bit limited. Iran is not member to the Anti-Torture Convention. Iran has not ratified different other documents that enable, for example, Human Rights Council to accept the complaints against Iran. There are, unfortunately, a lot of limitations. And Iran is also not member to the International Criminal Court. There are different mechanisms how the jurisdiction can be triggered, but unfortunately not on the territory of Iran. So the only thing that can be where the International Criminal Court might be involved in the Iranian situation is if the members or citizens of the member states commit atrocities on the territory of Iran. So this is only the path of opening the jurisdiction. before the International Criminal Court. Unfortunately, the other sources are very, very limited. But the only path that I see at this under current situation is the universal jurisdiction. And I want you to bring an interesting historical example that might be very much applicable on the Iranian situation. As you correctly mentioned, the Nuremberg, and as I have already mentioned at the beginning, the Nuremberg is not only the International Military Tribunal. There are also subsequent 12 trials that had been held here in Nuremberg, and one of them were against the lawyers, against the judges, against the prosecutors who were committing or giving death sentences to political opponents. They were making unfair trials and sending the Jews and the political opponents to concentration camps. So the whole idea of that was that they were actually stamping the regime's order. And by signing the judgments, by bringing false accusations before the court, they were found actually liable for committing crimes against humanity. And this is exactly the historical fact that even those all people that are involved in these fake trials or show trials where actually the prosecutor and judge, there is no distinction between these two institutions. They are just making the political order. And that's why they can be held liable for commission of international crimes, even without being a physical perpetrator.
Okay, thank you very much. This is really useful information. In addition to be interesting. So, but just a curiosity, you said we try. You rightly mentioned reference to the fact that it is possible an intervention only if in case of a crime against a national or another member of the International Criminal Court statute occur in the territory of Iran, right? So I think that there are many minorities, people from different minorities living in unfair condition, arbitrarily arrested, arbitrarily executed also. And I refer, for example, to people of I'm not informed about nationality actually, so I don't want to be I don't want to take the risk to be not so precise, but they are member of a Kurdish minority, for example. In some cases, if I'm right, with Iraqi nationality, but this is, of course, hypothetical because I have no correct data in my hands at the moment of this session. But the hypothesis could be exactly that. So to have a request of to open an investigation to the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court from one side. But do you think there is any kind of change reasoning about the existing applicable international criminal law that sua sponte ex officio the prosecutor of International Criminal Court could open in some way without any other request from parties an investigation on the situation of Iran?
Unfortunately, as I said, the legal system is a little bit limited. So only the perpetrator's nationality plays a role in order to trigger the jurisdiction. So in order to have just let me take you one step back. So in order to have an International Criminal Court place, we need three aspects. The first one is the jurisdiction. And jurisdiction here is either the territorial jurisdiction or personal jurisdiction, meaning either it has been committed on the territory of state party or by a national of a state party on the territory of not state party. Let's say Iran is not member to the ICC. So this is out of the jurisdiction. But let's say if a German citizen commits international crime on the territory of Iran, then through that person, the jurisdiction may be activated. But this is only about the jurisdiction. The second step is the trigger mechanism. And this is what you mentioned with the ex officio or in proporio motu. So in order to trigger the jurisdiction or to open the investigation, the prosecutor can act on its own initiative, considering all the evidence that it has, for example, from NGOs, from different reports. It opens the, let's say, preliminary examination. The second one, if the member state refers to the prosecutor to start investigation. And the third one is, of course, the UN Security Council. For example, this could be also another interesting institution that can maybe refer the situation to Iran, but unfortunately, considering also the current situation in the UN, on the Security Council, I don't think this can be one of the paths. However, theoretically, we have two cases before International Criminal Court. One is the Sudan case, and the next one is the Libyan case, where they were not party to International Criminal Court, but the UN Security Council referred the situation to the ICC, ordering the prosecutor to start investigation on the non-state members to the ICC. So if I can summarize, the first one is the jurisdiction, the second one is the trigger mechanism, and the third one is the complementarity. Complementarity in Iranian case, of course, it's clear that all those cases where international criminals commit international crimes, they are not investigated. And of course, the third one would not be an issue. So the first two steps are the most relevant steps. First, jurisdiction, and second, the trigger mechanism. But as said, the jurisdictional issue is a core at the case, which unfortunately lacks a lot.
Thank you very much. I'm asking you those questions also to give to use your expertise to give more clarity to our public, and that's also why I do really appreciate you accepted our invitation today. Sure. And this is the point of my interest. Thank you to mention the reference to the NGO reports, or from my point of view, most interesting, the fact-finding mission on Iran, the special rapporteur on the situation of Iran, for example. Those reports should be per se sufficient to activate proprio motu the prosecutor of International Criminal Court, from my point of view. But I don't know what is your point. And there are actually a lot of reports, at least since 2020, but even before, of Amnesty International about specific executions, about specific individual cases of execution in Iran, and also general report on the situation of Iran. But at the present, there's no sign at the level of the Office of the Prosecutor that there is any kind of interest to open a proprio motu an investigation over Iran. So what is your opinion about that? So maybe they are not sufficient, the present reports?
No, they are sufficient. But let me answer to your question with the example I brought at the beginning. Yeah, the crime has been committed in 1980s, and only after 40 years, Nouri was arrested and then convicted for international crime. So the core thing is to document the crimes that have been committed. And this is the core, and these NGO reports play a fundamental role for the future cases. Maybe today it is not possible to activate a proporio mortu initiative of the International Criminal Court's prosecutor, but it doesn't say that in next year, 2, 3 years, 4 years, the International Criminal Court jurisdiction will not be activated. So these reports, the document, the facts that international crimes have been committed. But they are, of course, not enough, because the prosecutor should continue its investigation. It should go to the on site, should collect the testimonies of the victims, should analyze concrete incidents. But these reports are important in order to show the scale and the scope of the international crimes that have been committed. So documenting, reporting, collecting testimonies of the victims. This is the crucial foundation of international criminal justice. And I plead for all NGOs, and I really appreciate all the work that the NGOs do, and they do actually the toughest part of the work of international criminal justice by collecting this evidence, by speaking to the victims, what had happened to them, and giving their voices a place that should be heard, then maybe not now, but in future cases. So that is why the NGOs work is crucial and very, very important and relevant.
Thank you very much to say that. And I have direct experience also of interview of victims in cases of grave crimes against humanity and crimes against the women, especially in Yemen. So I know how much hard it is to collect data, to convince victims to open, and because any time is to live again and again what happened. So instead to close the door to the past and go ahead and restart with their life. So I know that it's quite complicated. So I agree with you that the work of NGOs to collect data, and especially in the case of Iran, where there's no access actually to official data, is so hard to have access, at least to official data, especially because many of the arbitrary execution occurred silently, not publicly. So it's even hard to collect data in relation to that. So the work and the result is even powerful when they could collect data and maintain updating database with all the references. But these give me the chance to submit you one more question in relation to time, because you say that today actually is quite difficult, but this not impede that in the near future, and we hope as soon as possible those reports would be at the basis of an open investigation against what happened in Iran and what is unfortunately still happening there. So the point is that we know both as jurists that time is important in relation to, at least for two reasons. From the side of victims and family of victims, justice delayed is justice denied, of course. But from the side of also to build the accusation, the more time has run over, more difficulties to collect data, sorry, find witnesses, and so on. We saw that, for example, with the case of Rwanda, how much difficult was to collect data about the genocide in Rwanda. So what do you think about that, about the question, the fragile issue of time?
International criminal cases, of course, are complex, and you're totally right. They take time. If we look at the trials that have been held in ICTR, ICTY, at the ICC, current cases, they take a lot of time. And this is also something that should be communicated to the victims. Yes, in order to, we should continue having the hope that the ICC one day will open a case in the Iranian situation. But of course, these cases will take maybe also decades. But I want to bring you to another historical example connected to Second World War. Imagine even until now in Germany, there are cases where former Nazi members are still being invited before the courts, and they are still facing their trials. They are still being convicted for the crimes they have committed, or they were being complicit in different crimes. So, as I said, there is no time limitation for international crimes. It means whenever it has been done, that fate of the person is already decided. It's just a matter of time when he will come and stand before the trial. The preservation of the evidence is, of course, and archiving the evidence, the testimonies, is most important part, because if we look at the Sudan case, that the crimes that have been committed in 2003, most of the witnesses of crimes maybe are not allowed, are not alive anymore. So the prosecutor has a lot of challenges with that. So it means that if the work of the NGOs, if of different institutions are done properly, of archiving the evidence, or preserving the evidence in a way that it will be used one day before the trial, is the most important thing. But we need to communicate to the victims that it will take time, and this justice cannot come very quickly, because the cases are complex. There are a lot of also political dimension involved there. There is, of course, some lack of cooperation from different states that is also present. These all parameters we cannot just forget.
So thank you very much to mention that, because my opinion in relation to time is exactly maybe on the contrary. I know that there are complex cases, but that's why we need to have a proper defined time for justice in criminal cases. Not only because of the respect to victims, but also because we need to collect the data. And I thank you very much for making reference to the fact that still nowadays in Germany there are open cases against former Nazi officials and members of the different sector of the Nazist party. Because imagine how much difficult, so 80 years after, how much difficulty is to find the witnesses about the crimes. So the risk is that you cannot collect sufficiently at the moment of the process witnesses and data, and the accused cannot be substantiated, cannot find the substance and about so horrible crimes. And these allow me to make reference, thank you for that, to the fact that we had just one case of a former Nazi, the Priebke case a few years ago. He has been processed many years after he was really old, so practically never spent so much days in a jail because of the system, the criminal system in Italy. Was a really historical case. But from the other point of view, we must say that neither in Nuremberg, neither inside any national jurisdiction, we had any kind of open investigation or process against the brothers of the Nazis, the fascists. No fascists have been held accountable in Nuremberg. We all know that. But in addition, these give me open the way to another question to you, which is the point of the transitional justice. Because in the other phase of the international criminal justice, from my point of view, also is the transitional justice to rebuild a society, like in the case of Iran. So once you have, of course, no peace is possible without justice, from my point of view. But also these kind of processes and criminal investigation should be instrumental to the rebuilding of a destroyed society after so many years of internal conflict or authoritarian regimes, like in the case of Iran, for example.
That's a fantastic question. And I really like that question because this is always a dilemma to have a peace or justice or peace and justice together. But I'm truly believer of the justice system. If we look at the Rwanda's case, where the Gacaca tribunals were used in order to have to reconcile the society, it is important to identify who has done something wrong. Who was that person who was victimizing people, and that should be named. Maybe the punishment, we can discuss the methodology of the punishment of that person, but we need the identification. We need to write in the history who has done the wrongdoing, because it is for the satisfaction of the victims that their pain has been identified, that their pain has been recognized. And as you correctly mentioned, yeah, I'm coming originally from Armenia, and we know how difficult it is when the pain is not being recognized. Yeah, you are always in the same circle of trying to identify and recognize that you had a pain. And if we look at the victims' resolution from the UN General Assembly, that says that the victim is a victim if the person considers himself or herself as a victim. And that's all. It means that the person has sustained harm, and we need to recognize that the person sustained harm. But this recognition goes through the justice, through the criminal justice, by naming the perpetrator who did that. And I think this is one of the core things that we need also in Iran. I hope that they will come where all these international perpetrators or horrible crime committers or perpetrators, they stand the trial and witness the same as the victims as at least they witnessed. I think we can't just ignore the situation. We need the perpetrators to stand the trial, and of course, considering all the fair trials principles. They need to have of course, the defense. They need to have the right to defend themselves. Otherwise, it will be another routine. So we need to have a justice, and I can't believe peace without justice.
Thank you very much for supporting my idea also that I do the example to Italy using your reference to the Nazi cases, because the fact that we had no fascist accountable is also due to a specific law approved. Well, it was a decree in 1955. It's a kind of decree for national peace. So according to that decree, all former members of the fascist party were excused in some way and allowed, just to speak simply for our public without to be so much technical, allowed to form, to be part of the still building community, new democratic, new republic created in 1948 in Italy. And this explains many things of the present politics nowadays in Italy and then in Europe. So we must learn from the past and say that we are not finding for any kind of vengeance. It's justice. It's like you. I really appreciate your reference. The victim needs to say that's his or her fault publicly, and that publicly recognize that not as a victim, as a survivor.
Exactly.
Like people of Iran, like Armenian people, and unfortunately many others in the world. saying, okay, we were submitted to any kind of sufferance and sorrows, but we are here standing up against the perpetrators, and the rest of the global community is with us, is standing with us, which is what are you doing with us today, and what we do with our podcast, or we at least we try to do every week, giving voice to prisoners in Iran. So thank you very much. I would love to stay more time, and I hope that, as I say to all our guests, this is the start of our cooperation. Also, not just the end of our cooperation, but it just the starting point. So before to leave, every week we ask to our guests to send a direct message, a short direct message to people of Iran, to people in prisons of Iran, for directly supporting them. Please.
Well, as I'm Armenian, as I'm your neighbor, I hope that one day the Iranian people will have the democracy and have the fair trial principles set in the foundation of the country. And I really appreciate all the work that the NGOs do in order to voice the suffering of the victims around the world, so also the neighbor states understand what exactly happens in the neighboring country. The only thing that I would wish you, keep strong, keep fighting, and I hope one day your suffering will see also the justice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. And so before to conclude, let me just to be more precise and send a message directly to the family of, I hope to pronounce well her name, Narges Ahmadi, the lady who has been executed last 25th October in Qom Central Prison. This is a message to her family, and also to all women suffering for domestic violence in Iran. And because of that, they are arbitrarily detained, accused, and at risk of execution. So my message today is also for, among all the interest I love to make some sport, and the curious about also different ones, even if I don't practice many of them. And one of these activities, boxing. I don't practice boxing, but I love to watch it. So, and my message is for Mohammed Javad Wafaim Sani, too, who is a boxer, and his family. He's also at risk of execution, of arbitrary execution. So my solidarity is to him, and I make a public call from here to boxing club around the world, the boxing club here in Spain, and federations to stand up for him, because it's very important. So with this last bad news, I express again my appreciation to Dr. Gurgen Petrossian to be with us. And I thank you very much to all of you. Stay strong, and see you next Tuesday.
Thank you very much.